This is a story about saving a life, what it means, what it costs, and why the two don't always add up. It starts with a diagnosis, a whisper of hope, a promise of healing. You're told there's a drug, a miracle cure, a lifeline. And then you see the price, a number so astronomical, so utterly detached from reality, it steals your breath. How did saving a life become a luxury? How did the very medicine designed to heal us become a weapon in a war of wealth? This isn't just about healthcare. This is about a paradox that defines our time: the life-saving drug and the fortune it costs. We are told stories of scientific breakthroughs, of tireless researchers battling disease, of pharmaceutical companies as beacons of innovation. And indeed, they have delivered wonders. Vaccines that eradicated scourges, treatments that transformed chronic illnesses into manageable conditions. But for every triumph, there's a shadow. The soaring price tags that push millions to the brink of bankruptcy, forcing impossible choices between health and survival. The very industry built on saving lives is now accused of profiting from suffering. At the heart of this paradox are the pharmaceutical giants. Companies with names whispered in hushed tones in boardrooms and shouted in desperation in hospital waiting rooms. They argue that high prices are essential to fund groundbreaking research and development, the cost of innovation. But peel back the layers, and a different picture emerges. Billions are spent not on pioneering new drugs, but on marketing, on lobbying, on acquiring smaller companies to eliminate competition, and on extending patents for existing medications. Is this innovation, or simply a sophisticated business model designed to maximize shareholder value? At the center of this model are the titans of pharma: Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Novartis, Roche, Merck, companies synonymous with both healing and controversy. Their logos emblazoned on state-of-the-art labs where scientific marvels are born, but also on towering monuments to corporate wealth. According to Forbes, Pfizer raking in a cool $100 billion annually, Johnson & Johnson close to $90 billion, Novartis, Roche, and Merck all boasting six-figure earnings. These aren't just numbers. They're trophies, testaments to a relentless pursuit of profit. But how do these giants justify the astronomical prices that accompany their life-saving drugs? Enter R&D, the holy grail of pharma profits. Research and development conjure images of boffins in white coats toiling away in sterile labs, driven by nothing less than the betterment of humanity. And indeed, some of this money goes towards this. Some drugs represent decades of research, billions of dollars invested to understand, synthesize, and perfect a compound that can alleviate suffering or save lives. But here's the twist. The R&D narrative is carefully crafted. It allows pharma companies to reap billions in tax breaks and subsidies while sheltering their exorbitant drug prices under the guise of cost of innovation. But the truth is far less romantic. A closer look at R&D spending reveals a stark reality. A massive chunk of money, almost 25%, is dedicated to marketing and promotion. That's billions spent on convincing doctors to prescribe their drugs rather than cheaper alternatives. Almost 17% is channeled into acquiring other companies, a strategy primarily aimed at eliminating competition rather than fostering innovation. And a significant 15% is poured into administrative and legal expenses, including the formidable task of keeping regulators at bay. All of this leaves a mere 28% for actual research. So while there is some money dedicated to discovering and developing new drugs, it's far less than the pharma industry would like us to believe. But they have another trick up their sleeve, one that ensures their products remain out of reach for millions. Enter evergreen. Imagine you've developed a blockbuster drug, a treatment that's not just effective, but highly profitable. You invest heavily in marketing, ensuring every doctor in the country knows its benefits. But what happens when the patent, the document that gives you exclusive rights to sell the drug, expires? Generic competitors enter the scene, offering cheaper versions of your drug and eating into your profits. So how do you protect your billion-dollar investment? Enter evergreening. Through a series of legal maneuvers, companies can extend their patents, often by claiming minor improvements to existing drugs. It's like changing the label on a wine bottle and claiming it's a vintage. In essence, evergreen is a form of legal protectionism. It ensures that cheaper alternatives cannot compete, preserving the high prices that guarantee huge profits. Take Gleevec, a cancer drug produced by Novartis. When the original patent expired, Novartis didn't let the cheaper generics take over. They introduced Gleevec, a version with a couple of extra pills thrown in, claiming it was a new and improved product. A new patent was granted, and the cycle of high profits continued. This isn't about improving drugs. It's about maintaining control and reaping maximum profits. And the consequences are stark. Lives are put on hold, hopes are deferred, and millions are pushed to the edge of financial ruin. Evergreening is one piece of a much larger puzzle, a web of tactics employed by pharma companies to maintain a chokehold on the market. One particularly insidious method is the use of pay-for-delay settlements. In these deals, generic drug makers agree to stay out of the market in exchange for lucrative payments. It's a legalized form of bribery, and it keeps prices artificially high. Another tactic is the creation of artificial scarcity. If there's a shortage of a critical drug, guess what happens to its price? Up, way up. And pharma companies are often the ones orchestrating these shortages, either by deliberately limiting production or by buying up available supplies to drive up the market value. In this game of pharma chess, every move is calculated to protect the bottom line, even if it means sacrificing lives or livelihoods. For millions of Americans, accessing life-saving medication is a daily struggle. The burden is immense, the stakes are high, and the future looks bleak. At least 13 million people skip doses or ration pills due to cost. Over 40 million struggle to afford prescriptions. And an astonishing 15 million forego needed medical care altogether. The human cost is immeasurable. Families are torn apart, dreams are deferred, and lives are cut short. Consider the tragic tale of Alicia, a diabetic fighting for her life while trying to save money on insulin. Or the heartbreaking story of Isaiah, whose battle with sickle cell is complicated by his inability to afford proper treatment. And what about Emily, a victim of multiple sclerosis, who faces a daily choice between managing her condition and facing eviction? These aren't just case studies. They're human beings whose stories are defined by the price of medicine. And beyond these individual tragedies, the impact is even more profound. In the United States alone, medical debt is a staggering $195 billion. It's a burden that affects 1 in 5 adults. It's a crisis that claims 60,000 lives every year. 60,000 lives lost because people can't afford the medicine they need. The paradox deepens. We live in an era where we have the knowledge and the technology to eradicate diseases, but we're held hostage by a system that monetizes suffering. We're forced to choose between our health and our financial security, between life and debt. Behind this cruel irony lies a tangled web of regulations, revolving doors, and political influence. The pharma industry wields enormous power, a force that shapes legislation, influences politicians, and bends regulations to their will. Consider this. In the U.S., the top 10 pharma companies have spent a staggering $29 million on lobbying since 2015. That's almost $3 million per company per year, and the impact is undeniable. They've successfully lobbied for laws that limit the availability of cheaper generic drugs and for policies that shield them from lawsuits. Adding to this intricate dance of influence is the revolving door between the pharma industry and regulatory bodies. Key figures move seamlessly between the two worlds, often taking secrets and strategies with them. Former FDA commissioners have landed cushy jobs at pharma giants. Senior government officials become consultants, privy to the inner workings of the system they once oversaw. It's a cozy club that perpetuates itself, ensuring that those who make the rules are often the ones benefiting from them. The pharma industry has woven such a powerful web of influence that it has managed to shift the narrative, paint sky-high drug prices as a necessary evil, and themselves as benevolent healers. But the truth is far more sinister. They're profiteers, preying on our vulnerabilities, exploiting our illnesses, and reaping fortunes from our suffering. So how did we arrive at this point? How did medicine, which should be a pillar of hope, become a symbol of despair? It's a story of corporate greed, political collusion, and the erosion of our values. It's a story that demands our attention, our outrage, and most importantly, our action. If this sounds like a cynical expose, it's only because it is. But if there's a sliver of hope in this dark tale, it's that we still have the power to change it. The first step is awareness. We must recognize the life-saving drug and the fortune it costs as the same story. Only then can we demand change. We must challenge the status quo, question the motives, and hold the powerful accountable. This isn't just about saving lives. It's about preserving our collective humanity. It's about ensuring that the price of medicine doesn't come at the cost of our souls. Let's rewrite this story together. One where healthcare isn't a privilege, but a right. Where innovation isn't measured in profits, but in lives saved. And where the life-saving drug doesn't cost a fortune. So ask yourself, what role will you play in this story? Will you be a character who accepts the bitter pill of fate, or one who fights for a better ending? The choice is ours, the responsibility is ours, and the future of healthcare is in our hands.